The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, a big old frothy glass of ale, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Eggertspiele's Heaven and Ale. They'll also take a look back at the Dukes' review of A Feast for Odin and Jump Drive in a Dukes quadruple take, and then they'll talk about resume-worthy skills from board gaming that can apply to work. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 173, which we're calling the Alefather. Courtesy Nick Hayes. He helped name this episode over in our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008. Of course, we're talking about Heaven and Ale. And we're also talking about Feast for Odin in our Dukes Double Take. So a little play on the Allfather from Norse mythology there. Works great. Good job, Nick.
Well, as you know, Sean, as a member of Monochromatic Wolf Play Experiences, I had to be quizzed in all aspects of Norse mythology prior to taking this job. So I appreciate a good Norse mythology pun.
There you go. So we'll actually give you the rest of the runners-up in our top 6 names at the end of the episode. Yeah. So Alex, what's going on there, buddy?
I just got back this past week from New Orleans. Had a fantastic time over there for my birthday.
Yes.
Had some
happy birthday.
Thank you. Had some great food. Stayed at the same hotel as all the WrestleMania wrestlers were staying in.
Sure.
Which was 100% lost on me. I don't follow wrestling. Don't know anything about it. I rode in an elevator with Ronda Rousey at one point. I was in an elevator with Lana, the wrestler Lana. Not the Archer reference. That's what came to my mind too. Anyway, but I was, at the time I was riding the elevator with Lana, was pretty drunk and had just had a bunch of beignets and was coated in a light dusting of powdered sugar. So that was fun. It was kind of a scene. There were a lot of autograph hunters. And for any WrestleMania fans, I'm sorry I didn't properly appreciate that experience. But it was fun. That town's great. Food's awesome. Live music's awesome. Everything's awesome. How are you, Sean?
I'm good. I don't have any New Orleans experiences like you. I actually went to New Orleans like 21 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Man, you're old.
Thank you. I was in high school at the time, so...
that still makes you old. Because 21 years ago, I was 8.
You sure were. 21 years ago, I was 15. So...
Oh, that's closer than I thought. Why did I think you were so much older? That's weird.
Okay. Hey, let's talk about board games, Alex.
Yeah, that's a good idea. What have you been playing, Sean?
Oh, what have I been playing?
Yeah, what have you been playing?
Again, we're not going left to right on the show notes. All right, fine.
No,
fine.
not happening.
So I'm actually going to talk about a couple of Kickstarter fulfillments. First, I'm going to mention Steamrollers. This is a roll and write game published by Flatline Games. Well, at least they're the ones who kickstarted it. And it's since been picked up for additional distribution by Stronghold Games. There's actually a little bit of controversy here, Alex, because there was a commitment by Flatline Games to not make this game available at retail for a year after the Kickstarter. And I guess I'm not sure how that's working, but apparently there's some upset people that Stronghold's picking up and is making it available at retail, which is kind of an interesting point. You know, if you're backing something on Kickstarter because you really want it and you're worried it's not going to be at retail, you know, to what extent is that company required to kind of go through with that pledge? I don't know. That's another discussion. Let me tell you about the game itself. So it is a roll and write game. So you have your individual little player sheets, because you're going to be drawing onto these sheets. And in the middle, there is a board with a bunch of different cities. And this board is the same as each individual player's pages or sheets that they have, right? And there's different towns and different cities. And then you're going to place some random goods cubes. So there's different colors, green, yellow, red, blue, whatever, on these different cities, and what you're trying to do is deliver a matching good to another city down the way. So what you're going to do is roll a bunch of dice. It's actually the number of players plus 1, and it's just regular D6s, but then there's also a special die that has different types of tracks. So it's either a straightaway track, there's a soft curve, or a sharp curve. And you're going to draft one of the dice in turn order, and what number you pick is going to let you determine what you can do. So it might let you just draw a train track, so you're making these different rail networks, or you can use it to deliver a type of good from the city that matches that die number. So if city number 5 has a green die, or a green cube, and I have a valid connection through my tracks to that green city, then I can go and deliver it and score a certain number of points based on how far my tracks go, how many different towns they go through before they deliver it to the city. I could also use the die to increase my locomotive output, basically longer segments of track that I can move along. And then on top of it, there's also these special action cards that are numbered from 1 to 6, which you could potentially steal from other players after they've taken them, but you'll always have a chance to use it at least once. Some of them have some ongoing effects, some of them have immediate effects, and they're also potentially worth points or worth negative points at the end of the game. Usually if it has one of the stronger abilities, it might be worth some negative points. So I get to play this the other week. We played 4 players, and I believe it plays up to 5. It was a lot of fun. This was a pretty nifty little roll and write game, Alex. It satisfied a lot of the, a train game itch that you might have. And with the roll and write on top of it, there's some nice variability because those different special action cards, they're double-sided. And there's some different modules you can play with. And we only played the base game. So there's still a decent amount to explore here. There's a good chance that after we record, I'm going to get to play this 2 players with Raquel tonight. So roll and write, something I enjoy. Train game, something I'm coming to enjoy a lot more in recent year or so. But so I would definitely check this out because, hey, it's going to be available at retail pretty soon thanks to Stronghold Games. It's worth checking out.
While you were talking about the game, I was over on the Kickstarter page for this one, kind of looking up some of what you were talking about, dealing with the controversy, minor controversy. It's some comments back and forth, and certainly some upset backers. It's referencing a 1-year Kickstarter exclusive pledge. This is the guy behind Flatline Games is based in Belgium and had gotten an offer shortly after it was on Kickstarter to license it in the U.S. And things happen, and he's apologized to backers on there. In any case, just wanted to kind of clear up a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's kind of hard to turn down. When Stephen Bonacore comes to you and is like, hey, I want to publish your game here in the U.S., that's kind of hard to turn down. I was a backer. It didn't faze me, but I can certainly understand how some people might be upset. So that is what it is. And that is Steamrollers, coming soon here in the U.S. from Stronghold Games and originally from Flatlined Games.
Excellent. All right, first game I'm going to talk about is from a little while ago, from when Jake Bach from the Draft Mechanic podcast was visiting. This is a game called Matryoshka from Terra Nova Games, White Goblin Games, designed by Sergio Alaban. And in this game, you are trading Russian nesting dolls, and you're doing so through a series of deals. Basically, you'll put one out on offer, and then the other players at the table will make a deal or attempt to make a deal for that. You have to pick one of them to swap the cards. And you are attempting to build sets of these Russian nesting dolls, sets to ultimately score the most points at the end of the game. As you collect more over the course of the game, as they're dealt out, you reveal a certain number, so people might have a sense of what you're going for, or you might catch them by surprise, depending on what you reveal or don't reveal. It's a nifty little deal-making game that, Sean, I was surprised didn't get a ton of traction, I don't think, or certainly as much as I would have expected, given how solid this one is. I think you've discussed this one on the show before, right?
Oh, yeah. No, discussed it on the show. We also did an how to play video on the YouTube channel. No, I think Matryoshka is a fantastic game. It's really good. In fact, if you go to Terra Nova's website, I believe my comments about it are listed on their product page.
That's good. That's always a positive sign, usually for a company involved with the Dukes of Dice. Anyway, Matryoshka. I liked it a lot. We played a couple of rounds of this. It was certainly fun enough and fast enough to get through it. The one thing with this, Sean, I had some issues with the graphic design, especially on the edges of the cards. I don't know if you recall that too clearly.
I do.
I feel like that could have been way more distinctive, and it wouldn't have been that hard to do, to have those things stand out.
Well, here's the thing. You don't want it to be too recognizable because you're flashing your card across the table to a single person, and you're trying to do it in a very sly way so that they can clearly see it, but other players cannot see it. So if it were too easy to, because there are too many times when you get a quick glance, and so I think a lot of the colors are purposefully muted, and then the iconography around the side to kind of assist with color blindness is also difficult to distinguish. You need to be able to really look at it to be able to distinguish it.
Yeah, I get that. The way we were playing was put it on the table, and then the individual player picks it up and looks at it, and then puts it back down. Which, when you're doing it that way, there's no need for that. You can study it as long as you want if you need to. The bigger problem comes in when you're trying to organize your hand and try and figure out what you have or don't have. And that thing nipped me in the butt in at least one of those games, not realizing, oh, these are actually from different sets. Whoops. So, yeah. Yeah, it's something I noticed, and for a game that is just cards, it becomes even a bigger issue than that. That being said, I would certainly look to pick up a copy of this at some point because it is mechanically really cool, really fun, neat little set collecting game. One I'd probably play over something like, say, Bonanza.
In fact, I believe that's exactly what my quote was.
What? Is it?
Yeah, I'd rather play this over Bonanza.
Well, okay, then we're on the same page there. So that's Matryoshka.
All right, well, last one I'm going to talk about is, like I said, another Kickstarter fulfillment. This is the Roll Player expansion, Monsters and Minions. And Alex, you and I reviewed Roll Player back in episode 125, which we titled Chaotic Goods. And that was like right before you left, I think. I think that was one of the final games before you left on your 14-week trip.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds right.
So Roll Player is an interesting game. It is a dice drafting game where you are trying to build an RPG character, kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons character. There are 6 attributes: your strength, constitution, dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. And based on what type of race you are, you're going to get certain modifiers to those stats. Based on what class you are, you're looking for a range of certain values. So like, for example, if you're a fighter, you're probably going to want to have a high strength. If you have a high strength in a certain area, you're going to get a certain number of points at the end of the game. And then you also have a backstory, which is going to affect the colors of dice that you want to draft in certain positions. And then you also have an alignment, like your lawful good, chaotic evil, whatever, which is a resource in and of its own based on how you kind of move this little cube around. And if you wind up in your correct alignment, you're going to get some bonus points, or incorrect, you're going to lose some points. And so you're drafting these dice. You're also buying certain equipment. You're buying weapons and armor, some skills, some talents. So you're fleshing out this character, and it's going to let you score points in different ways or maybe mitigate certain things. And when all is said and done, the game is over, you have this character, and you go out and do nothing with it, which I didn't have a problem with, right? I kind of liked the way that it was, you're taking this fun thing that I like doing, building characters. In fact, you and I, Alex, are going to help your level 1 half-orc bard level up to level 2.
Timmy Fist Battle.
Yes. We're going to do that after the recording. And so I always love creating characters. Probably I've created hundreds of characters, if not more, over the years that I've never actually played with. It's just fun to kind of create them and do different things with them. So I loved this game a lot. Looking back, having played this expansion, I'm now thinking that Roll Player was probably 85% of a game. As much as I enjoyed what it was doing, this expansion, oh boy, it is really good. So here's what Monsters and Minions does. It adds a boss monster that you're going to have to fight at the end of the game. Now, throughout the game, you're going to be going out kind of scouting. You're going to be fighting some of the minions of this monster. And depending on how well you fight them, you're going to get information about the monster's location, the monster's type of attack, and I'm forgetting the third thing, but it's a third thing that you need to care about. And if you discover those, then you're potentially going to get certain bonuses when you actually fight the monster. So after you've created your character, you're going to go out and fight the monster with a certain number of battle dice. So now you're doing something, right? These battle dice are just regular D6s. They're a little bit smaller than the other dice in Roll Player. And you're going to roll them. You're going to add them up. And if you meet a certain threshold, you're going to get a certain number of points. And you're able to spend a new resource. So normally there's coins in the game, but you also have XP, which are these little blue cubes, which you can gain from fighting the monsters or from the minions or from some other effects. And you can spend them to get extra battle dice or to get rerolls on your battle dice. It was really cool. So it's adding a ton of new stuff. There's a ton of new equipment that you can buy. There is, and what the cool thing is, instead of buying equipment, that's when you can go scout and fight some of the minions, right? So you're no longer necessarily just buying equipment and talents and skills. And there's also one-time effect cards. They're called scrolls, I believe. So they just have an immediate effect. Wow, this added a lot to the game. What it does do, which is kind of unfortunate, is it breaks down the idea of you're building a character and just building a character, because it doesn't make sense that you're not done building your character, but you're going out to fight minions. If anything, it's more of this idea that you're kind of leveling up, because when you fight some of the minions, normally you get to roll 1 battle dice, then you could spend extra XP for more battle dice, but some of them will have things that say, for every purple die in your tableau, get an extra battle dice. Or for every die you have in your wisdom attribute, like you're fighting a satyr, get an extra die. So there's some interesting things there, but it kind of strips away the basic conceit of the game that you're filling out this character sheet, because it just doesn't make sense to go fight minions before you're done rolling up your character. But I'm okay with that. This is really good. I think that it doesn't add so much that I would not choose to play this with a new player. In other words, I would play with the expansion when I'm teaching someone new for the first time, because it's really solid. I'm really looking forward to playing more of this. I think you'll really like this. Does my concern for it, going out to fight minions before you're done building your character, is that a problem for you?
I can see it somewhat working thematically, right? You have a character that's a little bit weaker or isn't complete and is training up. It's sort of telling the time before level 1, before this character got to where they are. So I think thematically it could work depending on how it's implemented. I'd be curious to actually play it out and see if it feels that way. But sure. I think there's a potential justification there. I don't have an issue with it as described.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to go with your interpretation of it. I like that. That works.
Okay. Great.
Now I have no issues with the game whatsoever.
Happy to help.
Yep. So yeah, it was really cool. I think you need to get your hands. Hopefully someone in your play group there has access to this, because I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd like to play it. I'm trying to think.
Because you liked Roll Player a lot.
I did. I liked it a decent amount. Yeah, I did.
A decent amount?
Yeah, a decent amount. Not a lot. I think I gave it what did I give it? A 5? Did I give it a 4 or a 5?
I don't know.
It's probably a 4. Anyway.
I give it a 5.
Okay.
It's definitely a 5. It doesn't get to a 6 for me, but it's definitely still a very solid. It's a much stronger 5.
Good. Yeah, it's locked up its position. Nice.
It's a 5 with a constitution of 16. How about that?
Nice. That fulfills our requirement for occasionally role-playing games.
Sort of.
All right. Last one I'm going to talk about is 51st State Master Set from Portal Games and Ignacy Trzewiczek, which I hope I pronounced correctly. I think I did. This is the game that was re-implemented as Imperial Settlers. And I will tell you, Sean, I have seen this game on the table since it came back out again as 51st State Master Set. And I had been avoiding it because I had played Imperial Settlers with you. I don't know if we reviewed it on the show, but I definitely played it.
Yes.
And I remember playing it, and I don't remember if we reviewed it. I'd have to look it up.
No,
again.
we did not.
Okay. Probably because I did not care for it. Didn't enjoy it.
You played it with me, Matthew, and Raquel.
Yep.
And you were miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable.
So.
I like it a lot, by the way.
I know you do. And it's your kind of game. It's tableau building. It's engine build. Like it's a very Sean kind of game.
Yeah.
So 51st State is at its core similar to that. Your individual player powers in this one aren't as distinctive. You get certain abilities, and your factions are good at doing certain things. It's set in this future dystopian wasteland where you're raiding places for supplies or making deals with different raiders and raiding groups. That's the core of it thematically. You're taking cards from hand. You can use them in a bunch of different ways. You're gathering resources to ultimately use those cards. So I was playing this one with Josh, my buddy Josh over at Monochromatic Wolf, and played it just 2-player. I was hesitant to play it, but it was high up on his list of things to play. And I think I have come to the conclusion that the main reason I didn't like Imperial Settlers was because of that exact play group. I think Imperial Settlers at 4, and probably even like at 3 would be the max I'd cap out at.
Wait. The play group or the play number?
Both.
Oh, jeez.
And here's the thing, Sean, and you know this, and even she knows this. Raquel is a bit of an AP nightmare in certain games. And I have a distinct memory of that game taking way longer than it should have. Imperial Settlers specifically.
Okay.
Do you have this specific recollection? I don't want to put you in the doghouse.
I have a recollection that everyone at the table, save myself, had a significant amount of AP.
Yeah, I probably did too. At 2 players, less of an issue. It moved quickly.
Yes.
It moved smoothly. I played as the mutant faction. I was good at raiding and burning stuff down. Josh was playing as the faction that's good at making deals, and I basically just bum rushed and got the game to a conclusion and wrapped it up then and there. Yeah, I'd play this one again. I dug it enough thematically. It wasn't too complicated. The tableau building wasn't overwhelming. It all clicked. It worked together well. I enjoyed this, and I'm glad I gave this one another try. Big credit to Josh for getting me to pull this one back out again, because just based on the Imperial Settlers play, I was specifically avoiding this game. So,
okay.
Yeah, 51st State.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually haven't played 51st State, either the original game or the new master set. And no particular reason. I really like Imperial Settlers a lot, and I'm sure I would like this well enough. But I'll just probably stick with Imperial Settlers.
Okay.
So
fair enough. Well, that's going to do it for what we played. Let's head on over to the news desk. First up in news, Games Workshop has a board game-related announcement. They've announced The Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. Sean, does this one look like it's going to be pretty good?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on here. So Games Workshop has been making a pretty big push to make some new board games, and usually it's in 40K, Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer Fantasy, or I guess now Age of Sigmar or whatever. And so this is the first one that I can recall. I don't think there's been another one where they're doing a Lord of the Rings game. If some people will recall, they have the license for Lord of the Rings to do miniatures game way back when the first movie came out in, 2001 or so. They had the license and they did the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. And for a while, it was mostly a scenario-driven system where you would fight out the battles from the movies. You would fight out the attack at Weathertop, where the ring wraiths are attacking the hobbits before Aragorn shows up. Spoiler alert, I guess. And then eventually they introduced supplement that lets you like create these nice, these big armies that you could fight it out with. Actually, my favorite tabletop miniature skirmish game was that system. It was fantastic. I went to Chicago to play in tournaments. I went to Vegas to play in tournaments. It was so good. It was deceptively simple looking. Okay, getting way off topic. Point is, now they have a board game, and it is described in a very strange way to me. So it pits players against one another in the quest to destroy the One Ring at Mount Doom. But the players are playing characters from the Fellowship. So you're Gimli and Legolas and the Hobbits and whatnot, but you're playing against each other. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, when you think of this type of game, you think like there should be some level of cooperation.
Apparently
if you have
not.
multiple players playing members of the Fellowship, but now you're just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like supposed to represent like the jealousness of guarding the ring and keeping it from other players or something. But it's weird, and it's just very counter to the lore, counter to the book or the movie or whatever. Doesn't that sound weird?
Yeah, that's a strange thematic choice. Hobbit Deathmatch 2018. Or whenever this game comes out.
Why would you title it for the year that it came out and not...
Because they're going to put out new editions every year like a sports video game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know that's how board games work?
Yeah, I guess so.
My copy of Terraforming Mars 16 is quite the collector's item these days.
Yep, sure is, Alex. Sure is. So yeah, that's Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. It's going to play 2 to 5 players. It's supposed to play in 30 to 45 minutes. So I'm just confused about what this game is going to be, because that's a really short play time. I don't know if that's just a massive underestimation of how long it's going to play. I just don't know. I don't know what's happening with this game. We don't have a release date, but we should get some more information later in the year.
My copy of Terraforming Mars 16, by the way, I got an exclusive David Beckham out of a loot box. It was pretty sweet. He's not really good at anything as far as the game goes, but you can build a pretty nice team around him, I guess.
Next news item, Alex.
Next news item. Kickstarter scandal borders tabletop game studio. Fraud? Question mark? So this has been out there, and I'm actually...
So you're reading this portion of the show notes for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And you kind of, I love how you just kind of like, you were going with it. Like, I'm just going to read it.
No,
this isn't like a fully formed sentence.
Here's what's in my head. No, here's what's in my head. It actually has nothing to do with, your reasoning is actually not true in this situation. Because I am familiar with this case specifically.
Okay.
And I did read this section of the show notes. In TV news, we were always cautious about using the word fraud. Very cautious. There were certain words you couldn't use. You couldn't say scam, but you could say scheme. Any case. Yeah. So I think I was just being slightly cautious about that.
As an attorney, this is fraud.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. You got the Dukes covered?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we're good.
I mean, you and I are fine. The LLC itself might come crashing down, but you and I are good.
Oh no.
No one's piercing that corporate veil.
No, and as we'll get to as we talk about this, I have actually had some dealings on the other side of this related to this story. Yes, but yeah, Sean, what is this story about?
Okay, so this was initially reported by BoardGamePrices.com, so you can go over to their website to kind of get the full story. But basically, there's this company based out of Singapore, Malaysia called Borders Tabletop Game Studio, and they've been a pretty significant distributor in Southeast Asia for a bunch of different Kickstarter projects. Games like Anacrity and, a little game called Gloomhaven. So in recent years, they provided services where people would make a group pledge for Kickstarter projects, which is going to let people basically save on shipping because shipping to other countries can be a little prohibitive. So that's just a service that they offered, and it sounds pretty cool. But a few months ago, the shipping information that was being given out by game publishers wasn't lining up with their deliveries. And so people would send in messages, emails, chat, and this company stopped responding. Just closed off, shut down, stopped responding. So basically, they were receiving these games, but weren't doing the distribution. They weren't sending them to people that were actually pledging for them, unbeknownst to the actual publishers, the Kickstarter project managers. So, like, for example, the company Mighty Boards, which made Petrichor, on March 27th, they did a post that said, "We have some unfortunate news to share on this matter. Borders Tabletop Cafe received the packages with the games. However, they have stopped contact with us immediately after picking up the package. We have been trying to reach them through various means. However, it seems that it is unlikely that we will get them, and we are considering this cargo as stolen by Borders Tabletop Cafe, in addition to the down payment for fulfillment. This is quite a tough nut for us. We have lost almost $20,000 US in market value to this event." That's pretty significant.
Yeah, not good. Not a good situation at all.
So here's like a partial list of companies and games that were affected. Roll Player from Thunderworks Games, which we just talked about. Brass from Roxley Games. Moa from Ape Games. Food Chain Magnate from Splotter. And then Cthulhu Wars from Peterson Games. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more. So the consensus is that this could be one of the biggest cases of board game fraud. That's okay. I'm going to say it, Alex.
Okay.
In the industry. Because there have been issues with, there was the Doom of Atlantic City. Is that what it was called? The
Doom that came to Atlantic City, I think.
There you go. Eventually, Cryptozoic came in and kind of made that right. Not that they had an obligation to do that. They just fixed it themselves. But there are cases where, there's been fraud or scams or schemes however you want to say it, for individual projects, but not anything like this. I mean, this is pretty significant. And I know that a lot of people are kind of banding together to see what sort of legal action they can take in that region, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Now, so you said you had some experience on the publisher side of things?
Yeah, as folks know, I work for a publisher, and per a customer who contacted us, they had backed both. Am I going to say the names, or am I going to do the
Go, say the names. Say the names.
Winners of Viking Land, the expansions. Champions of Midgard, the expansions, and Deception Undercover Allies expansions. I certainly was able to look in our own system internally, and they definitely were a backer for Deception, and I believe for Champions too. And we were reached out to by a customer who said, "Hey, what can you help me out in any form or fashion here? I know you already shipped to these folks, and whatever else might have happened. Can you help us out because of what happened here?" And so we worked with that particular customer to try and help them out, to try and get them a copy. It's tricky to do because they're so far away. International shipping is no small task. We do have fulfillment partners who help us out in those situations, but yeah, pretty nasty to hear about and pretty disappointing if you're a customer over there.
So you're able to confirm that they were a backer. Are you able to confirm like how many units of each of those games?
Oh, let me take a peek.
If you're able to share.
No, this is fine.
I guess it's public. Like you could look it up. You could follow them and you would know, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
On Kickstarter.
Yeah, maybe. But they can add stuff in the pledge manager later. Per what we have in the system, they backed for six copies of Undercover Allies. I don't have Champions numbers handy in front of me, but okay. 6. I don't know how many orders they took for that game, to be clear, but I know that they only ordered 6 from us and paid for 6.
Oh, I didn't think about that, right?
Yeah, right? I mean, that's the whole other question with this.
Yeah, you could see, oh yeah, they totally, there's 6 orders and one of those is mine. No, in fact, they took, 100 orders and, oh wow.
Yeah, potentially problematic. And as a publisher, there's not much we can necessarily do. I mean, we're not getting paid directly by these customers. These customers are paying some money to Borders, who then groups in theory is supposed to bundle together those pledges and get something at the retailer level and distribute those. So it's a tricky situation. There are ways we can potentially help some customers affected by this. So and we have already done so, and I can't guarantee we'd be able to help everyone is the problem, because we don't know how many orders are out there for this.
Well, sure. I mean, essentially, you have no relationship with these people, right? You have no contractual relationship. And so if all of a sudden you have, 100 people show up and say, "Hey, this $20 game I didn't get," I mean, I don't think you guys should be expected to eat that.
No, I don't, and I don't think people are. We can do things like if we have extra copies at distributors, folks who help us fulfill, like in Southeast Asia, or in general, it's VFI Asia who helps us out. So occasionally there are copies left over from Kickstarter campaigns there that we can sell at a discounted rate or something along those lines. But certainly getting someone a free copy of that game is probably not going to be in the cards, just based on the situation from our end. It's hard to do. So yeah, it's brutal though. It's a brutal situation. I mean, I feel for these folks.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the individual backer, the reason folks do this is the individual backer levels for international shipping. The shipping itself is way, way, way more expensive than it is if you were able to bundle these together with a retailer order. So much less expensive. So sure. I get it. I feel their pain. I really do. And we want as many folks as possible to play our games and have fun with them. So, any case, that's way off on the Gray Fox tangent, but yeah, we've dealt with this personally.
Yeah, no, interesting firsthand stuff from an industry insider.
Industry insider Alex Goldsmith. By the way, my new middle name, I changed it. It's Alex Gray Fox Goldsmith. So
excellent.
Yep.
Okay, we're back to
okay, Monochromatic Wolf time.
Now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Any case, that's the Borders Tabletop Game Studio fraud story. All right, next up, an interview that I did with Rob Daviau from Restoration Games, talking about a Kickstarter that quite a few folks have heard about.
What?
Yeah, quite a few. It's Vul-Kar, Fireball Island, Curse of Vul-Kar, and here's my interview with Rob. Hey everyone, joined by Rob Daviau from a number of places, but pertinent to this interview, Restoration Games. Rob, how are you doing this fine early morning?
I'm doing all right. 7 a.m. here in Seattle.
Woohoo!
which is not usually where I'm from. So that's why I'm up early.
But you sound awake and ready to go, which is good because we're talking about something unbelievably exciting, I think, for a lot of gamers. Certainly based on the Kickstarter backing, Fireball Island. Man, I can't even say it in 3 tries. The Curse of Vul-Kar. And this, Rob, for some background for folks, what was this game originally?
This game was Fireball Island. It came out in 1986 from Milton Bradley and was popular through the late 80s until about early 90s. I don't know exactly what year it went out of print, but it was and continues to be a big plastic island with little figures that you walk around and then fireballs, which are marbles that you knock over other people with. And it was very much a kid's game in the 80s, and I know if you're sort of like between 35 and 45, you probably had it or you wanted it for Christmas or your friend had it up the street. This was the most requested game we had at Restoration Games to bring back, and we brought it back.
Yeah, and is that how it came to your guys' attention? Was this something that when you were thinking about games to bring back to life in the line or in the early going of Restoration, was this one that was on the short list? This
was on the short list pretty early on. I mean, we came out of the gates and we had some games that were, I think, a little heavier we were thinking of. I mean, one of our games in our line now is Indulgence, which is a meaty trick-taking game. And we weren't necessarily thinking sort of popular like kids games, and this was sort of put upon our short list by a lot of different people. So Justin, the person, my partner in the company, is a lawyer, and he started to investigate how can we get the rights. Yeah, this was on number 1 with a bullet at the time.
How hard is it to get the rights to something like this? Because as you mentioned, this was a Milton Bradley game.
Well, Milton Bradley in general tends to license games from outside inventors, just like in the hobby industry, publishers, get a game from a designer. So the rights had, by and large, gone back to the original inventor, but there were 2 inventors, and then our manufacturer, Longshore, had the rights from the inventor. Like, there was this whole string that doesn't really make for a good interview. So it took about 9 months to a year for Justin to sort of do it, and we had to wait, and someone else might have interest, and we had to kind of show that we're a new company, but we had enough experience to do it. And it was, it wasn't complicated. You just have to be a bit tenacious, and you have to be a lawyer like Justin is to sort of understand how these things go and how much time they take. I would have been, after a week or 2, been like, no, can't get it.
I give up.
Yeah, I don't know what to do next. So he's very good at going out and trying to figure out what leads we can get.
So when you did get your hands on this game, what were some priorities to change as far as a gameplay perspective? Because the whole point of Restoration Games is to breathe new life into these kinds of things. So what were some steps you guys took to breathe new life into Fireball Island? Cannot say it. Wow.
Fireball Island. Yeah. It's because you said the name of the Curse of What's-His-Face. Now he's cursed.
Oh, no. I am Vul-Kar. I have cursed this podcast interview.
No, don't. Why are you saying? You're just tempting fate now.
Fear me. I am Vul-Kar.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I'm auditioning at the same time. I don't know if you can tell. Anyway.
I was a little old for the game when it came out. Like, I was in high school and college, and so I was aware of it, but I didn't have those childhood memories. Like, if you show me first edition Dungeons and Dragons books, that's my, whoa, like that sort of a different place for me. So I played it, and it was cool. I suspected that the people who played as a kid remember it being very big and the marbles being very fast and the gameplay being very good, which it was good for the time, for the 1980s kids game. When you look at it, it did take up quite a bit of table space, but it was not that tall. The marbles didn't move that fast, and there was a lot of sameness to what happened. It was a roll and move. You roll the die, you move that many spaces. It was sort of a path with a couple branches, and if you roll the 1, you get to flick one of the many fireballs that were on the island, or just tap them and get them launching. And we kind of wanted to make it bigger and faster, and certainly we want to make the gameplay a bit more dynamic and strategic to match mostly a hobby audience, but we're always keeping like a 6 or 8-year-old in mind to whether they can play, even if it's not optimally. So one thing we did is we split the island into 3 different trays, like the plastic trays that you stack up on each other. And this allowed it to be taller so the marbles could go faster, but also fit back in the box. And there was a lot of effort of getting that to work. and getting the island to work and getting it to stack up and where do the marbles go. And the big thing we wanted to do was turn some of the gameplay on its head. We wanted you as a player to have more control over what you were doing on a turn, get away from the roll and move, but then have the marbles be less predictable, which has worked really well. It took a long time to get there. When a marble launches, depending on where tree roots are, depending on just the variability of the board itself, the marbles have an unpredictable quality, which means I've heard people, well, I'm not, like, if I'm not even watching them and people are playing behind me, I hear the right, like that sort of
Yep.
don't know what to do, and it becomes sort of this captivating spectacle to watch people play.
And I can imagine component is a huge part of this. Is this the most focused you've had to be on a component in a game you've designed?
This is 100% the most focused I had to be. Like, about 90% of our time was designing the plastics to be big enough and fast enough, but affordable enough for, to all work, and then to like have the gameplay around. When we started out, we had sort of some drawings of what the island could be and an idea of the gameplay, and we played it two-dimensionally. Like, okay, I moved here, and let's say there's a marble up here, and let's roll a die, and on a 4 or higher, it went the path we thought. And it showed that the thinking was solid, and then we sort of had to back burner that for 6 months while we built the island, and then got the first, island that we could play on and set it all back up again. And we're like, okay, let's start designing the game around it. But there was this 6-month window where we were digital for a while, and that was working, and it helped us work out a few things. And then we had to kind of go back to old school and build the prototype out of clay.
Man.
Like, literally just make something out of clay, roll a marble down and be like, no, it went too far to the left, and then put some clay in and roll a marble, and then tweak it and add clay and cut grooves. And it was back and forth with this industrial design company that's been doing it for a long time. And they're like, no, trust me, we're going to iterate much faster and see it much better if we're in clay. And we were all caught up in the modern 21st century. Like, just build it digitally and it'll save time. And we had to sort of unthink that in the process. But yeah, it was fun to work in clay.
With this, you also have several expansions that folks can get on the Kickstarter. What do these expansions do?
The expansions do a couple different things. One, like, we just had a number of ideas that we wanted to put in, and we just couldn't get everything in the game at once. So we kind of designed the core game to work great, and then started revisiting things. And the first one is called The Wreck of the Crimson Cutlass, and it's a completely separate island. The original game had caves. You go into a cave, you roll a die, you come out on another cave on the island. And we kept that, but we realized we could put caves on sort of offshore islands. And then you can go into a cave, and then you can come out of a cave on a completely different board. And there was something really appealing to, you're playing on this island, and then you can look at the end of the table 5 feet away, and you're still playing the game over there. There's a real sort of physicality to this game. And if you go to the Wreck of the Crimson Cutlass, it's a pirate island, has a special type of treasure, which like lets your turns be better. But there's a mast that can fill up with cannonballs and fall over and rattle the deck. So there's just like different ways that marbles can mess you up is what we were thinking. Then we have a second one called The Last Adventurer, which adds a fifth player to the game. So it's 2 to 4 in the base game. It gives you the 5th player and all the parts you need for it. Being an adventure and kind of going back to some 80s tropes where the game was from, it also comes with snake marbles, like miniature marbles that can poison you, and a foam boulder. Think of like a Nerf golf ball that is much bigger than the marbles and rolls down and crushes people. And then the last thing we have is a expansion called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Bees. Do you remember the game Ants in the Pants?
I think I do. Yeah, I think I played that one.
Yeah, like when you're a little kid, you push down this little plastic ant, and it would leap up and go into a pair of pants. And so we basically are using that same thing, but instead of an ant, it's a tiger. So it introduces the idea of skill shots. So if you might be hiding and I can't get you with a marble, and you take this little crouching tiger and you push it down and it'll pounce. And it's a hard shot to get, but it lets you get like a lot of reward if you manage to take someone else with a jumping tiger. And then the idol that's at the top of the mountain has, the mouth that the marbles go through. And we give you a beehive with 10 small bee marbles, and you pour them all into his head at the same time. And there's just this wonderful cascade of 10 marbles just going down, stinging people all at once. So we're just looking for different spectacles without it being a gimmick. I mean, obviously I'm talking about it in a gimmicky way because it's fun to do. But we looked at each one and we're like, okay, what if bees kind of sting you and slow you down, which makes it harder to go? What if snakes poison you and give you less control over your turn? What if players get powers because the last adventurer trained you, so now players have player differentiation? So we want the base game to just be like you're 7 and your brother's 10 and your parents are there and you can play it. You don't have to get super gamery. And then as you add the expansions and some of the cards are unlocking on the Kickstarter, you can get into definitely a little bit more of a gamer game, right? You can make some more tactical decisions and strategic decisions about how you score, what your powers are, how to use cards. So really the expansions allow us more drama, more people getting knocked over by marbles, which is the heart of this, but also just a little bit more play depth that we didn't want to put in the main game.
Well, and that's one of the final questions I have for you is, I'm someone who this game came out 3 years before I was born. I don't have a tie to the nostalgia. I have a tie to some nostalgia of games like it, right? But not this one specifically. As a game, as just a game itself, pitch it to the gamer who doesn't have those ties or doesn't have that nostalgic warm and fuzzies with this game.
Yeah, the game is just fun, right? Like we play games to have fun. So this is not a deck builder, right? This is not well, I wasn't going to say it's not a point salad, but you do score points at the end a little bit based on set collection of treasures. Yeah, you have to go around and get different treasures, and it's pyramid scoring. So there's 3 different treasures. Each one is worth one more than the other, and then there's this giant gem that's worth the most, and like you have to get back to the helicopter like at a certain time. So there's strategy of where you go, but it's basically just this spectacle game. It takes about 40 minutes for 4 people to play. It's light, sort of dramatic fun. I was going to make the awful joke that it's a worker displacement game, but even that, it's too early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mechanic whose time has come.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't going to say nervous because all our internal testing got well, but there's the normal apprehension when you show a game publicly for the first time. And J.R. Honeycutt, who's on our team, is taking our prototype and showing it, doing a road tour around to different places. And all of the reaction has been very positive. Now, it's a self-selecting audience in the sense it's people who wanted to see it and are predisposed to like it, but they are liking it. Just like, okay, that was 40 minutes of sort of silly fun. Right, you got pinned under a ladder by a marble and we all kind of laughed at you. And then on your next shot, you kind of flicked a marble and it bounced off this and took out 2 people and you got your revenge and you ended up winning. I don't know. It's what games are supposed to be about, like, which is fun. Like we've just tried to make it just enough thinking that you felt like you earned your victory, but just enough silliness that you're not going to get too caught up in it if you lose.
I love it. And clearly a lot of other people do. Currently, as of the time of this recording, at a little over $1.4 million raised for Fireball Island. Still can't say it properly. 11,660 backers. You have until May 3rd to back this if you want to get on board. Rob, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again to Rob Daviau for making a little bit of time, and congrats to the folks at Restoration, because that thing has blown up in a big, big, big way. So, yep. That's going to do it for our Kickstarter and our look at the news.
So, Alex, you finally settled in there in St. Louis. What do you have to game on at your place?
It's a wooden table for my parents.
All right, well, that sounds perfect, because did you know that's a gaming table, Alex?
Is it really?
Well, it is. Along with the help of a game topper, you can upgrade your gaming experience. It lets you turn a kitchen table or a dining room table like that into a premium quality thematic portable gaming solution with amazing gaming accessories that enhance the gaming experience. This was a smash success on Kickstarter, and if you're wondering, well, how do I get involved now? That's okay, because you can go to GameToppersLLC.com, and there are still ways to pre-order this. There's links there on the website that you can go ahead and follow, and there's a lot of different tables to fit your particular budget, different sizes, different finishes, a whole bunch of different gaming mats that you can use to really customize your gaming experience. What do you think, Alex? Should we get you set up?
I think that'd be nice. I'd like to game more here, and I'd also like to have this table for eating, because this is my only table. That's Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience.
Well, I'll be honest with everyone out there. I'm a little sad to see the Dukes of Dice going from a weekly podcast to a bi-weekly podcast. But that's okay, because there are a lot of amazing other board gaming podcasts. And with all the free time you now have not listening to Dukes of Dice every single week, maybe you should check out the Tasty Minstrel Games podcast. The TMG podcast is hosted by the undead Viking himself, Lance Mixter. It comes out about every week and it packs quite a punch for a 30-minute podcast. So nice, short, to the point. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes discussion from Lance, from Michael Mendez, the CEO of Tasty Minstrel Games. They bring on a bunch of industry insiders. It's a great peek behind the curtain, so to speak, into the board gaming industry. Lots of cool stuff here. Fantastic inside board gaming podcast. So you can find that where all great podcasts are found, iTunes, Stitcher, that whole deal. Also, be sure to check out all of Tasty Minstrel's amazing games over at playtmg.com. Playtmg.com has all the information you need to find some amazing board games. So be sure to check out playtmg.com and the TMG podcast. So we're fortunate enough to be sponsored by Arcane Wonders, and Arcane Wonders has an impressive line of games. Not only are they the home to the Dice Tower's Essential line, but they have other fantastic games like Spoils of War, Mage Wars Academy, and Mage Wars Arena. Now, of course, they're also the home of the Dice Tower Essentials line, a line of games handpicked by Tom Vassell as essential games that every gamer should own. They started it off with the amazing Sheriff of Nottingham, plus they have the Merry Men expansion for that as well. They followed that up with games like Royals, Onitama, Speechless, and Viral. Arcane Wonders has a game for every type of gamer out there. Be sure to check out all their awesome titles over at arcanewonders.com.
Sing thy praises to the sky, it's beer, sweet delicious beer. Is this game a sweet delicious brew? We're talking Heaven and Ale this week. Here's our review.
So Heaven and Ale is a Euro game designed by Michael Kiesling and Andreas Schmidt. It is published by Eggertspiele, and I believe there's some distribution here in the US through Plan B Games, because they do have a relationship there. The artist is Christian Fiore, and in this game, you are monks running an abbey that produces beer, and you need to tend to the gardens and the cloisters to manage basically all the different types of ingredients that you're going to need to make this beer. And then you've got this nice little brewmaster who's in charge of everything, and he's going to refine everything into this delicious concoction that is heavenly beer, which I'm a fan of. I'm drinking some Santa Fe Brewing Company Java Stout right now, Alex.
Oh, I thought there was a monk-themed beer somewhere made in New Mexico, right?
Yeah. No, there's, Monks. It's called Monks.
Yeah.
And they have a delicious dark ale. They have a Dabel and a Tripel. I think that's how you're supposed to say those. Not triple and double necessarily. But anyway, yes, there is a New Mexico beer called Monks, and it is delicious.
You know, Kobe Bryant got a triple-double in my edition of Terraforming Mars 16. It was pretty cool.
Moving on about how you play the game. So, in Heaven and Ale, you have individual player boards that are your cloister. And on the left side is the light side of the board, and on the right side is the shady side. You're going to be taking actions to gain these different resource tiles. There's wood, yeast, hops, water, and barley. And you're going to be placing them on either side. Generally, if you're placing them on the sunny side, you're going to be getting resources for them throughout the game. If you place them on the shady side, you're going to be getting money for them throughout the game. In the middle of everything, there is the central track around which your player pieces are going to move. And then in the middle of that track are basically a round marker and then some objective barrels, which are going to give you 4 or 2 points, depending if you're first or second there. And I believe there's about 12 different objectives that you can potentially score throughout the game. Now, along the track, there is, 30 spaces or so, give or take. And on most of these spaces, there are different resource tiles of the 5 types I mentioned, and they're all from a value of 1 to 5. There are also monk tiles. There are 4 different types of monk. They have different pictures, and you're able to also take these and place them on your individual player board as you would a resource tile. And then there are 6 additional spaces where you're able to take certain scoring discs, which are going to enable you to activate the tiles on your individual player board in certain ways to let you generate resources and money. Okay. So you're going to be going around this track, and you can go as far forward on the track as you would like, but can no longer go back in subsequent turns. So maybe there's this really juicy barley 5 tile that you want, but it's 10 steps ahead. You're now saying for the rest of this round, I have no chance of getting these other tiles behind me. It's kind of like, it's not, I want to say Tokaido and Glenmore, but in both those games, you keep going while you're while you're behind.
Right. And it's not patchwork either. Yeah.
Right. It's not like that. You will still be going in turn order, but you could jump ahead or as much or as little as you would like. Now, when you take one of the resource tiles, you're going to pay the face value of it if you're putting it on the shady money side, or you're going to pay double the face value if you're going to be putting it on the sunny resource side. So it's kind of an interesting decision there. Now, when you finally go to the different scoring disc spaces, there are 3 main types. You're either going to score for a certain value. And so this is a one time per game. I could say all of the 5s on my board are going to activate. And I'm going to get money or resources depending on which ones are the 5s. There's another action that lets you activate all the monks of a particular type, which the monks are basically tending to the things around them so that they will all activate in the adjacent tiles. Again, money or resources. And then you can take a scoring disc that will activate all of the tiles of a particular resource type. So maybe all of your wood tiles will activate, giving you money or the wood resource, depending on, again, which side they happen to be on. And then there's some extra wild ones on the rest of the track so that you've got plenty of options there as you're going along. There's also opportunities to grab some of those objective tiles, the barrels. So for example, if you fill in all of your shady side, you can claim that. Or if you have 6 level 5 resources, you can claim one of those. Lots of different options there. Now the end of the game is a little weird. It's very strange. So first, you need to make sure that you're going to get all of the different resources up as far as you can on the scoring track. And then you have this brewmaster, and you need to make sure you get him up as far as you can, because this is going to be the main way that you're scoring points. And I should mention, too, that the different resources start off at different levels. So, for example, I believe wood is the most plentiful. It starts higher up on the track, whereas I believe it's barley, which is on the very bottom of the track. So you have a lot of work to do with the yellow barley. Now, at the end of the game, first you check where your brewmaster is. Your brewmaster is going to be in certain bands of the track. So there might be like 3 or 4 different spots under a particular band. First, it's going to tell you the modifier, the point modifier that you're going to get for your least plentiful resource. So let's say that I've gotten him far enough where it's now a 4 times multiplier, and my lowest resource is 3. I'm going to score 4 times 3, 12 points plus whatever bonus points I'm going to get. All right. However, before you actually make that calculation, Alex, you're going to sell off some of your extra resources. So the resources that are higher up on the track are going to let you move resources that are lower on the track. And the band in which your brewmaster is located tells you the exchange rate. So if you get your brewmaster all the way to the end, you could do it at a 1-to-1 ratio. Or if he's not quite there, maybe it's 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, etc. So that you're eventually just kind of clumping all of your resources together, and hopefully your lowest one is high enough to get you some decent points. So you do that, add up your total, add up the additional points from the barrels, and whoever has the most points is the best dang monk brewing company in all the land and is the winner of Heaven and Ale. So Alex, what'd you think of Heaven and Ale?
I'm going to try and do this in a pithy movie reviewer quote style.
Okay.
All right, ready?
I'm not, but go ahead.
Alex Goldsmith from the Dukes of Dice says, a satisfying economic puzzle that fails to deliver on replayability.
Oh, there it is. Alex doesn't like tactical games. Wah, wah.
No, wait a minute. Now wait. I like this game.
Okay.
I like this game a good amount. I have some issues with it. And the 2 big issues that we'll talk about as we go through are how it plays at different player counts and the lack of variability.
Okay.
Of meaningful variability in the game. Those are the two main issues I have with the game. And it does a lot of other really cool things.
Okay. All All right. Okay, fair enough.
That's my initial thoughts.
So, yeah, I like this quite a bit. This, I had a couple people on Twitter and in other places figure that this is going to be a very Sean type game. As far as kind of the thinkier Euros, I would call this medium weight. Would you agree? Or you?
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Not medium heavy?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No dispute.
Yeah, I think this is a really solid medium weight Euro. It's very puzzly. It is also one of the dry Euros, which is surprising since it's a game about brewing beer. Ha ha! Not that funny.
Hey.
So, but no, it is a very dry Euro. The theme, I mean, I'm not jumping ahead to theme, but it's not particularly strong. It's a very mathy, puzzly game. And there's some interesting interactions. There's plenty of moments when I feel clever in this game. There's some cool combos that you can pull off. We didn't talk about in the rules. Basically, when you take those activation discs, if you take them in a particular way that activates these certain pairs, you have this hand of cards that you're going to get certain bonuses from. And there's just some really cool stuff that you're able to do in this game. But it's not a super narrative or thematic experience. But I liked this a lot. It is really solid. And you're right, it plays very different at the different player counts. Have you played all 3, 2, 3, and 4?
I didn't play 3.
Okay.
I played 2 and 4.
It's a very different experience at all of those player counts. But overall, I'm pretty high on this game. I think it's really good. So
okay. Well, this is gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
All right. Well, real quick, the rule book. I think it's a solid production. Basically, it breaks things down. It gives you the color coding, Alex. I love the color coding for certain sections, certain types of actions, so you know exactly what's going on. There's these nice little boxes that are kind of call-outs for certain things. I think overall, it's a pretty solid rule book. I don't think I really have any issues with the rulebook.
One small issue, but overall, I liked it a lot. I ended up having to learn this one primarily from rules videos and the rulebook. There was a question when it comes to when you put a shed down about how monks activate or what they mean by an activation.
Okay.
That was a little bit tricky in terms of the chanting of that I think they could have explained a little bit better graphically. Otherwise, I not only like the rulebook, I like that it's short. It's a really short rulebook. It's not an intimidating rulebook by any stretch. No. Which makes sense. It's, mechanically, in many ways, it's not that tricky of a game, despite the fact that there are some tricky, crunchy decisions to it.
Oh, absolutely. And I should point out, we didn't talk about the sheds. Basically, there are these set areas on the board that are reserved for sheds. And once you fully enclose the 6 hexes around them, you get to place a shed. Now, there are different types of sheds that depend on the total value of all of the things you've placed around them. And it's interesting because sometimes you want a high value, sometimes you want a low value. If it's a low value, I believe if they all total between 1 and 7, you're getting basically a 0 shed, but it's moving your brewmaster up 6 spaces, which is a lot. Whereas if you score 24 or more points around, not points, but value of 24 or more around, then you're moving your brewmaster up. I think it's only 1, or is it not
no
at
spaces.
all? No spaces.
Nope.
Okay.
For the max one, no spaces.
No spaces.
For the brewmaster.
But you get to then activate 4 of the tiles around you, producing either money or resources of that type, depending which side it's on. So sometimes you're like, cool, I want a bunch of these 1s and some monks which are worth 0, and I want them around this because I want some good brewmaster movement. Other times you're like, hey, I've got all of these 5 levels around this shed, so I'm gonna load them up and I'm gonna activate as many of them as I can to get, to get money or resources. So pretty interesting how you're kind of planning that out. But I guess getting a little ahead on gameplay there, what about the art and components, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it's this more, certainly the game screams Euro when you look at it. Yeah. Like it just it grabs you by the scruff of the neck and just yells, "This is a Euro game. This is a Euro game. It plays like a Euro." And I think it's fine. You can certainly distinguish between all of the different resource types, which I think is useful. The spaces on the board are well laid out, having the price printed. It all works together, solid game production wise. Yeah. I didn't have too many issues. There's some little fiddly things like trying to separate out the 1 and 2 resource tiles when you're done with the game, or the 1 and 2 monks, but it has the timer built right into the center of the board. I will say it's a little awkward to me, Sean, that the tiny barrels have to stack underneath the larger versions of the barrels. It's kind of a little bit funky, but it works. I mean, it makes sense in terms of the context of the game.
That's just because you're bad at dexterity games. So
yeah, I guess so. Bad at balancing things. I didn't have too many complaints with this. It certainly wasn't one that I'm like, oh, I love this. I love the look of this. I love the feel of this. It was fine. It did what it needed to do.
Well, let me ask you this. How does this compare to another game which has a central board and individual player boards comprised of hexes, a bunch of hexes, like, say, Castles of Burgundy?
I knew that's where you were going. It's a slightly better version of Castles. It doesn't quite lull you to sleep like Castles does looking at it. It doesn't look as overwhelming looking at it like Castles is. It has a little bit more personality than Castles does.
Yeah.
So I think it looks better on the table than that game, for sure. With that game, that's actually a weakness of Castles of Burgundy, right? Is the look of it. It keeps, I think, people who might love that game from playing it. This is equally as dry of a game in terms of the theming of it, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
But it does have a little more personality in the look. It's a little bit of a sharper look. It's still, though, it's that very Euro-tastic.
Sure. Yeah, and I would agree. I think that it does pop a little bit more on the table, and it's still easy to distinguish colors. It doesn't have like the muted colors that the Castles has, and I think the iconography is pretty clear. The only time you really are using the iconography is on the barrels for the bonus points, and then I guess on the scoring disc actions. But once you know them, there's not a whole lot to remember there. So yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty solid. So as far as gameplay goes, I thought that the level of brain burniness is incredible. There are certainly times where my turns are really quick, and there are other times where I am just deep in the tank trying to math this out, because I think there's a lot of different considerations, right? So first, you're picking, where am I moving my piece ahead on this track, the circular track? What is my priority? Well, I really want a high level green tile that I'm going to use on my sunny side, because I've moved up a bunch of my resources, but my green is still really low. I really need to put some effort into moving green up. Oh, but I'm set up to activate 2 different copies of this one type of monk, and it's the last chance to do that this round, and this other player may jump ahead of me to do that. Oh, what am I going to do? And then once you've made that decision, now you're placing these things on your player board, and you're like, okay, so where am I placing this? Obviously, I've already made the decision by paying double or paying face value to place on sunny side or dark side. But now I'm thinking, okay, which of the empty shed spots am I placing this around? What am I trying to get my total within around this particular shed? Or am I trying to line this up with monks so that when I activate this particular monk, I'm going to get this additional activation? And then when I pick which shed I'm trying to place it around, am I trying to place it directly opposite another particular tile because I know I'm going to activate a level 2 shed, which means it has to be 2 opposite ones? Or am I planning on activating the 3-level shed, which activates like 3 in a triangle pattern, which sounds weird, and it makes sense if you see it. Man, I feel like after my first game, I'm just trying to figure out what works. After that first game, I am thinking about all these things, and I'm trying to do this quickly enough to not have the game come to a crashing halt. But I love those decisions. It is really tough, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, let's add into that long list of things you were talking about. Hey, I'm getting close to this objective. I need to get to that objective before this other person does, but I also need to get to the space before they do. So we're positioning where you are on the board so you don't get beaten to that, because there's only so many of those barrels you can claim. There's only 2 per objective, and the bigger one is certainly worth more points. So timing is everything as far as that goes. The timing of when you have cash versus points, right? That's the shady side versus sunny side decision. Am I getting enough of an economy going to pay for the points or the resource movement that I need to get on the sunny side? And what's my timing for that? And do I invest really big? It costs 10 to put this one on the sunny side, or do I have it as a cash thing that I can activate a couple of times and get a nice steady stream of income going? And then on top of that, maybe I want to fill out my board, and I want to fill out my board in a way to get that shed up at the proper number. So there's a ton of considerations going into this, and yet, and I think this is a credit to the game, I didn't find my AP was out of control with this, despite the amount of things you have to process and think about, because there are only so many spaces on that track.
True. And I think the other interesting decision, too, is when you are finally, you're looking at whether or not you're going to take a scoring disc to get some type of activation. So, like, for example, the one at the top of the board is activate all tiles of a particular value. Obviously, you want to get that with some 5s, right? If you've got like 3 or 4 5s on the board and you're activating that, ooh, that's really solid. But it may be that you didn't have the opportunities to get 5, and maybe you didn't have the opportunities to get 4. And so now you're like, okay, well, am I going to wait and pick up some better tiles? Or am I in a position where, you know what, I've got like 5 3s on the board. Maybe I just activate those and be done with it. Because once you activate that particular ability, all tiles of one value, you can't activate it again the entire game, right? So it's a tough decision of, am I doing this too early? Am I doing this in a less optimal situation? Or if I do this too late, I'm not going to get the value out of it that I might otherwise, because maybe I just need the money now and I'm going to not be able to do a bunch of things I'm trying to make happen. Or maybe you're saying, man, you know what? This person is really close to getting the barrel that's worth 4 points when they have all of their resources basically on the board, so to speak, because everything starts at
above the positive line.
Yeah. The negatives, right? And so you're thinking, man, if I activate this now, it's going to move all of my things up to where they need to be so that I could claim that on my next turn. But man, it's just really not efficient for me to do that, but I really want to get that for whatever reason. So yeah, a lot of tough choices here. Well,
I think one of the coolest things about the game at the core of it is there's a concept in consumer behavior called loss aversion.
Sure.
And an opportunity cost is another economic. Anyway, it's dealing with this idea that we're more afraid of what we're going to lose than we are excited about what we could possibly gain from the situation. And this game pulls on that string in your head so well, because anytime you take one of those scoring discs, you are passing up on the opportunity to score that category for the rest of the game. And it's hard on round 1 to take one of those discs, but because they're so limited, and in the late game stages when they're more valuable, they run out like that.
Right.
My last round of my most recent game, I just sprinted to get a couple of discs ahead of folks, just so I could make sure I scored things and paired up things to get those bonus cards, which I don't know how much we talked about or not. That's another consideration with things too. But it's a game that tells you, hey, you're only scoring this once per game. Maybe be careful. When in reality, it may be better to be a little less careful than you think you need to be, so that you can get enough discs and get that thing going and just not be afraid to go for it. That's what I did in my most recent game, and it certainly paid off.
Well, and then there's also the option. Let's say that you got a really good activation. You activated all your blue tiles, got some really good bonuses from that, good money, good resource bump, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute. The paired activation with the blue one is the yellow one. And if I activate yellow, then I'm going to get to play one of the cards from my hand to get a bonus, like $12, or just moving your Brewmaster up 5. Man, I'm broke. I could really use $12, but activating yellow right now is really bad for me. Like, it's just not great, but man, I really need to do it. Or there was a time as the last round of the 3-player game I played, and what's interesting is the monks. There's 4 spots for monks. The first monk costs 4, second one costs 3, 2, 1. And again, it's double if you're putting it on the sunny side. But what can happen is if someone doesn't take like an early monk, then in subsequent rounds, additional monks are placed on that space. So we got to a point where there were 3 monks on this, 3 monks on this, on the 4-cost space. 2 identical monks, and then a third monk that was different. And so I went there and I wound up taking 2 different monks. Whereas everyone's like, wait, why don't you just take the same monk? And because you can activate those monks each. But I really needed to complete a certain pair of scoring discs to be able to play the card that was going to move my Brewmaster up 5. And I really needed that to happen. So I made what seemingly a less optimal play because it was actually going to have a greater benefit to me. And it's anytime there's a game where it's like, okay, I need D to happen, but before I do that, I need to do A and then B and then C. And how easily can you see that point to point getting from there to there, right? It's not just do this to do this. It's do this so you can do this, so you can do this, so you can do this, and then having to figure out how to work backwards from a certain objective. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I had a decent amount of satisfaction from this too. Because I'm competitive, Sean, what is your top score in this game, if you can recall it?
Hold on, let me see.
Oh, he has his board game stats ready. Okay, good.
I do. Hold on. Well, but we need to talk about that. And while I look at it, while I look it up, I mean, talk real quick about your different experiences, the different player counts.
Oh boy. Okay. So it's actually part of the same. I mentioned these as two different problems, and it's kind of part of the same problem. And I'll explain why in a little bit. The core of the problem is, no matter what the player count, and no matter what the game, the same 12 objectives exist. The same set of 12 barrel achievements you can get over the course of the game. All 15 sunny side, all 15 shady side, 6 of tile 5, 6 of tile 1, all of these different things. It does not mix up in any form or fashion between any of those counts. And at a 2-player game, it isn't limited either. There aren't a select number of them that you'll put out or not put out. And there aren't extra sets in the box that you can swap in to add some more flavor or more variety to it. What I found with this one at 2, Sean, was it just... the tension of and the interest level of having 4 people competing over a board just wasn't there. And it felt too open, especially when it came to the objectives. It just felt too open in terms of getting those objectives. It just didn't feel tight. So
I would agree that the objectives felt really open. And I think there's an argument that you can make that at 2 players, there's only one of the objectives per type, right? Like there's only the 4-point. There is no 2-point in 2 players.
Is that what the rules say?
No. I'm saying I can make that argument, right?
Right.
As far as the openness of choosing around the track, the difference is the number of rounds, right? At 2 players, there's only 3 rounds, whereas at 4 players, there's 6 rounds. So I still felt like it was fairly tight at 2, but it was just kind of tight in a different way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because there's the same number of barrel spaces, but you have fewer opportunities to get to them in a 2-player game.
Right.
Or the same number of disc spaces, but there's fewer opportunities to get to them because there's fewer players. It just felt to me like it wasn't. They could have done some other stuff to scale this and make it more satisfying. And the 2-player experience compared to the 4-player experience was incredibly unsatisfying. I would not play this again at 2.
Interesting. Okay.
That's how much I disliked it at 2 players.
Oh, wow. No, I enjoyed it at 2. I think 3 is probably my sweet spot.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I liked it a lot at 4.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot at 4.
Yeah, I did too. 3 was really quick. Like it was really snappy. At 3 players, you play 4 rounds, I believe. Yeah,
that sounds right.
Okay, so my top score, it was a 3-player game, and it was 46.
Okay. I played in a 4-player game last night over at Jamie's, and my final score was 88.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that in this last 3-player game is when I saw a lot of things really connect.
Mm-hmm.
And I started caring a lot more about certain positioning. So how do you account for an 88-point score?
So, and here's a question, because there was someone who came from out of town to Jamie's who taught this, and you can let me know if this rule is right. I don't have the rule book in front of me. When you have a shed placed and it activates a monk or triggers off of a monk, does that monk then trigger all of the spaces it's touching?
Nope.
Nope?
Okay, when you activate a monk using one of the scoring discs, that monk activates everything around it.
Right.
When you activate a monk through any other means, whether it's a shed or a monk activating a monk, then that monk only produces a bump in the Brewmaster.
And that's how I initially played it. And then we played it differently for this 4-player game. So everyone played with that same thing. So everyone's score was way higher.
Oh, yeah.
But I was able to change some pretty sweet stuff.
Well, yeah. No, that's a very different game. That's a very juicy game. I mean, there's a part of me that really wants to play it that way, because then you're just talking about some just mad combos, right?
Well, and I'm actually pulling up the rule book, because this was the part of the rule book I tried to clarify, and because I know you're right. If a monk activates another monk, it gets a Brewmaster bump. Yeah.
So basically, when you place your privilege scoring disc, it technically triggers a monk, which is what then activates everything around it. Any other time, you're just activating the monk, which gives you that Brewmaster spot. Or Brewmaster bump.
I've got a fundamental issue with the rulebook. I think they could have spelled that out better. But also, it is in there.
Well, it says for each of your activated parentheses, rather than triggered. Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely draws that distinction. And it was something that, I mean, I think in my plays, we all understood. And in teaching, I stressed. Right?
Yeah.
Like the only way to use a monk where it's activating everything around it is through placing the discs.
To be clear, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Part of how I got up to 88 was by scooping up monks really early and then triggering them like a madman, especially on the 2 shed tiles.
Yeah.
Which triggered everything next to it and behind it, and fun times. Fun times for Alex. Not the way you play it, but fun times.
Nope.
Anyway, so Ducal tip, play the game properly.
Okay, so we're going to say that 88 doesn't count.
No, it almost certainly does not count.
So what's your high score there, Mr. Competitive?
By the way, it was like 80. It was like 88 to like I think like 60 to like 50. Like it was that was the score at the end of the game.
Okay.
And I claimed 8 barrels.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, when you said that on Twitter, you're like, "Oh, I claimed 8 barrels." I'm like, "Holy cow! How did you claim 8 barrels? Like that's insane."
That's how you do it.
Yeah, apparently.
Sean. That's how you do it.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's the fun ducal variant. It's just like many other fun ducal variants over the years.
Yeah, evolution. You can play evolution in a crazy way.
Colt Express has the Ghost variant.
Ghost. Yeah.
You can play with Ghost. Anyway, we're way off track.
We should start the Dukes of Dice publishing company where we just publish PDFs of altered rules to play.
For games. Hey, if you want a crazy experience, play it this way and break the game. Any case, it doesn't. By the way, that was a fun way to play it.
Oh, I'm sure.
That doesn't help or hurt my thoughts. Because my problems aren't changed one way or the other by this. The variability to me is pretty iffy in this, Sean, because even between phase 1 and 2 of those tiles, it's just the same tiles reprinted with distribution. The same with the monks. You don't switch them out in any fundamental way. The variability comes in what order those are out on the board, I guess, but there's not a ton there. There's not different board looks like, say, Castles of Burgundy has. And in Castles of Burgundy, the order in which technology tiles come out, for instance, can have a massive impact on how each different game feels. Not so much with this one, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you in that sense. I mean, a game like this, which is more tactical in nature, you're choosing what's best for you at that moment. I think of a game like Five Tribes. Five Tribes introduces variability in terms of the different djinn that come out, and something else. Why can't I think what else would make Five Tribes more variable? But anyway, the point is you can do that in a game that's primarily tactical like Five Tribes. And so I'll agree with you in that sense. It doesn't bother me, but I certainly think that there could be room for expansions, maybe different type of the privilege pair cards that we talked about, or maybe different board layouts, or I'm sure there's options here, but it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the game in any sense. And I'm eager to play additional games of this. Raquel loved it too, even though she scored a big 0. Actually, no, she got some barrels, so it was like 4 or 5 because one of her resources was just too low in the negatives, basically.
Not good.
So she's like, "Man, I don't understand what just happened here," and she's eager to play it again. So didn't affect my enjoyment of the game, but I certainly, I'll agree with you that that's probably true.
Yeah. This is one of the rare situations, Sean. This is rare for me to say this. I think this needed a little more, just a little something more.
Wow.
Whether it be whether it be differentiation in the monks or something like that, or different board setups, something along those lines, it's going to play pretty similarly in future plays of this. I may play this again. I'm not going to get rid of it. We'll talk about this in scores in a little bit here, not too far. But I feel like there's something missing here, Sean. It doesn't feel complete, and there's a really interesting puzzle at the core of this, and it feels like there's just not enough there in terms of making each game feel different and unique and special.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough, I suppose.
It's just rare for me to say that. Normally, I'm a fan of simplifying.
No, I know. I'm kind of taken aback by it because it's just so counter to what you would normally say. So that's interesting. It's interesting that that's kind of your takeaway from it. So before we jump into final thoughts, let's just give quick lip service to theme, which we kind of already discussed. Dry, themeless Euro, right? I mean,
yep. Yeah, it's sort of there in the names of the resources, right? But why does planning on the shady side versus the sunny side make you? I don't know. It's a Euro. Just get over it. Yeah, it's not. There's not a ton there theme wise,
and I'm fine with that. I'm totally
it doesn't bother me really.
All right, well, Alex, I'm going to guess for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I think you're going to give this a 4 out of our 6-point scale.
Yep. Out of our 6-point scale, it's a 4. A good game worth playing, just not all the time. Belongs in the Duchy. And that's where I'm at with this one. I think this has a few really satisfying moments. There's a satisfying puzzle at the core of this. That tension of, hey, if you trigger this now, you won't be able to do it the rest of the game. I don't know. Without actually explicitly stating that. I love that. I love that in this game. And there's a lot I enjoy. I certainly enjoyed the plays of this. Long term, it just feels like there's something lacking. Whether it needs to be different objectives, scaling of the barrels at different player counts, whatever the case might be, I enjoyed this thing far, far more at 4, and probably only play it at 3 or 4. I would not play it at 2.
Okay.
Which is also fairly rare for one of these kinds of games. But hey, that's where I'm at. I'm not going to get rid of it. I think it's certainly worthy and worth players checking out. But be forewarned that this may not have the staying power you might look for in this kind of game.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Alex, what do you think I'm going to give this?
This is tricky. I'm going to go on a limb and say it's a 5, but it wouldn't surprise me if you're at like a very high 4.
A very high 4. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to give this a 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
A great game will rarely turn down a play of it, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you what I think might set this apart from some other games. The fact that it is. Once everyone has played this, I think it's a pretty quick game. I mean, we played 3 players in less than 90 minutes. I think if I were to play 4 players again with people that had played, I think it would be just shy of 2 hours. And at 2 players, man, we were done in just over, I'd say 60, 70 minutes. And so for me, the amount of planning and the brain burniness and the puzzling out of things that you're packing into that amount of time was really solid. It was a really intense time period that was still a pretty quick game. I mean, I would play this game back to back. Like it's that good and it's that fulfilling to me. So that's like, I think of let's say 5 Tribes again, right? 5 Tribes is in some ways not quite as thinky, and it takes a little bit longer. Now, don't get me wrong, 5 Tribes I think is the better game, and there are other reasons why I like 5 Tribes better, but in terms of that brain burner to time ratio, this game is really solid, and I really like it. So, it's I would say a very solid 5 for me. It'll be interesting a year from now to see what I think about it, if that variability will have hurt it or not, or lack thereof rather. Or maybe there's an expansion that comes out that's just going to make me love it even more, possibly pushing it to a 6. Who knows?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But no, for now, it is a very solid 5. A great game will really turn down a play of it. So, well, that's going to do it for the Duke's review of Heaven and Ale. A 4 for Alex and a 5 for Sean.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, it's another Duke's quadruple take of games Alex hasn't played. First up on our show, A Feast for Odin, from episode 136, Strange Brevet. At the time of that episode, Sean, you gave this game a 4, a low score for an Uwe Rosenberg game for you.
Indeed.
Called this one a brain burner. Aaron from Boards Alive, who was co-hosting with you, as well as Quentin from Boards Alive. Aaron gave this one a 4, said it was a strong and powerful Viking rating 4. And Quentin said, 3, for me, it's not horribly exciting. So, Sean, where are you at with this game now?
So yeah, I'm a big fan of Uwe, right? He is one of my favorite designers, and I own a ton of his games. I've played, I think, 14 or 15 of his games, and this was on the lower half of his games. This is, in a lot of ways, a culmination of a lot of his designs, but it's not one that I'm just that crazy about. It's not one that I've even played since we reviewed it. In fact, it is still down here in the basement of the Duchy. I was actually recording a solo playthrough, and then I did something horribly wrong, and I never got around to replaying it. And so it's just, I'm looking at it right now across the basement. It's just sitting there because I have no desire to play this game.
Ooh.
Not that I wouldn't play it, but I have no desire to play it. There are other Uwe games that do their Uwe thing that I enjoy more and I think are better. So here's what I'm going to do. My 4, which was a good game, worth playing just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy, is going to get reduced to a 3.
Ooh.
Game is okay. Not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. I'm not getting rid of it yet. And I think that's kind of my completionist collector mentality, right? Like there's like Aquasphere is one of my least favorite Felds. Luna is my least favorite Feld. I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm just not. I don't know. But it's a 3 for me. So.
Wow. My visual impression of this game seems pretty validated because I've had no desire to play it, just looking and feeling completely intimidated by that game.
Yeah.
Man, that thing looks like a bear on the table. Man, oh man.
It's pretty crazy. Well, we had some guilt thoughts, Alex. Tiger Mom says, I love Uwe, and my favorite Uwe is Fields of Arla, which, by the way, is my second favorite Uwe. I really enjoyed my Play of Feast, and I do like it much better than either Caverna or Agricola. I think if I had additional plays, it would land around a Ducal 5.
Love me some Tiger Mom. Shout out to Tiger Mom. You rock, Tiger Mom. Tiger Mom, not Tiber Mom.
Nope, that's not her name.
Nope. Tiger Mom. Thanks, Tiger Mom. You rock. Matthew S. says, I'd like to try Feast for Odin, but it wouldn't get played enough to justify buying it when I already have Caverna, Ora, Labora, and the Colonists. And Sean, that sounds like it echoes your thoughts.
I love the Colonists, which is not an Uwe game, but might as well be. Love Ora, Labora. And Caverna used to be a top 10 game for me years and years ago. It's kind of fallen a bit, but I'd still rather play Caverna over Feast for Odin.
Yep. Fair enough.
And then Evan says, I found A Feast for Odin to be among the least elegant games I've played in a long time. It's so convoluted. There might be a good game in here somewhere, but with 64 worker placement spots and a crazy weird rule set with the scoring boards and how you collect income, I'll leave it up to someone else to find out if that's true. This is the same designer who designed the impeccable Le Havre, which I will agree, Le Havre is my favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, and it's a top 10 game for me. I love Le Havre so much. Anyway, he says a 2 on the Ducal scale.
Burn.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going quite to those lengths, obviously, but no, I agree. I mean, Le Havre in my mind is a masterpiece, and you, sir, A Feast for Odin, are no Le Havre.
Oh no. Nice reference.
I knew Le Havre. And you, sir.
I dug it. I dig that reference. I dig it very much.
What was that?
Good
That
job,
was Dan
Sean.
Quayle and
That other guy who who didn't end up winning.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Next up, we're talking about Jump Drive from episode 138, Rocket J Squirrel. Sean, you gave this game a 3. Said it was a very limited situational game, but you were going to keep it in your collection. Tony from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, continuing the cavalcade of podcast celebrities, gave this one a 4, said it's not going to turn his nose up at it, but there's a lot of other fillers that might come out before this one. So, Sean, where are you at with Jump Drive?
Well, first off, Alex, now the audience can't see this, the listeners can't see this, but here is Jump Drive, which I'm holding up to the camera.
There it is, yeah.
This has remained here since we recorded this a year ago. I brought it down to, I don't know, to talk about it during the review or something, and I just forgot to take it to the Gamers Garage sale the last time around. So I'm going to move it over here so I remember to take it for the one at the end of the month. So before I give you my thoughts, I'm just going to read a comment from the guild. The Mr. Sean, not to be confused with this Mr. Sean.
Not actually Sean.
Says, regarding Jump Drive, it is a very watered-down race for the galaxy. Too much so. Too simple, too short. There would never be a situation where I would choose to play it if race were available. Ends too soon. Combos can be way too swingy. Not a lot of good choices in the end. Hashtag unleash the 2. The Mr. Sean, you have echoed the thoughts of this Mr. Sean. Exactly.
The 2 has been unleashed.
I'm gonna reduce this to a 2. At the time, I said, you know what? This is kind of a good way to teach someone Race for the Galaxy, teach some of those basic concepts. But no, I can't see me ever bringing this game out anymore. So sorry, it's a 2.
Yep. BJ from Board Game Gumbo, who provided some fantastic Gumbo-related tips when I was down in New Orleans, says, this is one that still hits the table almost every month, and when it does, we usually play it 2 or 3 or 4 times in a row. This is one of my favorite games in this genre. I need to get my own copy. All right. So BJ on the opposite side of that debate.
Maybe I'll just send BJ my copy.
Yeah, that sounds... hey.
Okay, BJ, I'm sending you my copy.
There we go.
There we
Perfect.
go. Done. One less game to take to the garage.
Nice. Hey, do you still have all my stuff from the garage sale? Did that stuff sell or none of it?
No, I think Rory was doing it.
Oh, was Rory doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened with those. Huh. I left like a bunch of games.
I'm pretty sure your stuff did not sell.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Anyway.
So Chris Holm said, since I can teach Race of the Galaxy to just about anybody, I didn't have a need for Jump Drive in my library. I had to be certain, though, so I gave Jump Drive enough plays to confirm that it's nowhere near as awesome as Race for the Galaxy, my favorite space-themed game. And yeah, I agree. It's not. I mean, for me, Race for the Galaxy is a very solid 6. It is difficult to teach, and I know Chris has had a lot more experience teaching it than I have, so he probably has it down pat. So
fair enough. Scott Sexton says, thoughts on Jump Drive? It's a nifty filler game, but honestly, I'd rather be playing Roll for the Galaxy, Ducal 4. Don't know if he meant Race or not, but probably anyone who has those thoughts would probably be rather playing either Race or Roll, because both are pretty cool.
Well, and I think Roll for the Galaxy is a better introduction to that type of game. I think it's a little bit more accessible. I still like Race better, but I love Roll. Roll is amazing. And hey, here's Tiger Mom again. Jump Drive seemed just okay for me. I sold my copy almost immediately after the 2 plays. I would give it a Ducal 3. And she says, love my Dukes. Always brings a smile on my face.
Yeah, me too.
To my face. It's on my face, but it's bringing it to my face.
It's special delivery to your face.
Thank you, Tiger Mom.
Thank you, Tiger Mom, for getting Sean a special delivery to his face. Cool.
Yes.
That's the Duke's Quadruple Take. A feast for Odin. Sean takes that one from a 4 and drops it down to a 3. And in another brutal twist of fate, Sean takes Jump Drive from a 3 all the way down to a soon-to-be heading to BJ 2. All right, this week for our discussion topic, something that Sean came up with. Sean, how'd you come up with this crazy idea?
Well, Alex, it was through a lot of introspection and thought. I'm preparing my resume. No, I'm not. Actually, I was just kind of poking around real quick because you messaged me and you're like, hey, we need a discussion topic. And I'm like, and so I just looked on BGG in the general discussion and I found
Thievery.
This. So there is one
Thievery.
out there. Yeah, and unabashedly so. So, okay. So you kind of twisted it around a little bit. So it was one of 2 things, right? Either what are some board game related skills that you could put on a resume to kind of pad your resume, or what are some skills that you've learned from board gaming? And what's interesting with that first question, how can you pad your resume? Maybe there's a little tongue-in-cheek aspect to that, but maybe there's a little bit of a serious aspect to that as well. So here are maybe a little more tongue-in-cheek things that I thought of. So you could say that you have strong negotiation skills used to resolve complex geopolitical conflicts.
Oh, okay. Nice.
All right. So you can think of games like Diplomacy, maybe Risk. Hey, callbacks to last episode to our Mount Rushmore of modern board game.
Uh-oh.
You could say that you have skills for the analysis of commodity-based economies. Right?
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
How about a strong emphasis in logistical operations, including resource management and optimization of complex systems?
Yeah. Okay. This is very good resume. This is very good resume writing.
Would that sound impressive, or were you like, what is this person talking about?
No, I think it sounds impressive, and I think that's what some people try and do with their resumes.
Okay. All right. Ability to problem solve and mitigate adverse results caused by unforeseen forces.
Nice. Yeah.
So maybe, like luck mitigation?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Efficient utilization of workers to achieve immediate tactical and long-term strategic goals.
So it has you sound like you have some managerial experience there.
Exactly. When really
Perfect.
I'm just playing Lords of Waterdeep.
Nice. Okay.
The last thing I got here is hey, I'm good at risk management, which works on two different levels, Alex. One, you're good at playing the Risk board game.
Okay.
And two, push your luck games.
What is it with you and Risk these days?
Oh, I don't know. Just get over it. Risk is in the name. Risk is in the name. Risk management. Get off my back.
I sense. Have you been playing Risk lately, Sean?
I have not. No.
Have you been betraying the hobby?
No, I have not. It's not. Hey, simmer down over there, St. Louis.
Okay, is that my new nickname?
Yeah, you're the St. Louis kid.
Hey, it's me, the St. Louis kid. Here to talk board games. That's not a St. Louis. I don't know what a St. Louis accent would sound like. I don't think it's that
at all.
To be very clear.
Oh my!
I don't know what that accent is at all. Anyway.
No one does.
Well, that's all very impressive, Sean.
Thank you. I should also include advanced skills at writing fake resume skills.
Nice. Yeah. No, solid. I haven't written a resume in a good chunk of time. No, that's not true. I think I had to write one for Gray Fox. Anyway, Monocratic Wolf. Sorry.
Dang it.
Oh, no. Oh, so many plugs. I'm getting lit up on the guild. So
Alex,
hey, Sean,
do you have something to contribute to this discussion topic?
Well, it may surprise you, Sean,
yes?
to find out that I didn't approach it from the resume writing side of things. I just completely ignored that side of things.
Cool.
It will also not surprise you that I'm kind of coming up with this off the cuff of things that I was thinking about. Because that's oftentimes how I approach this. But no, what occurred to me were some of the things that you said on resume writing, but that have actually applied. For instance, resource management. Managing your time as a resource in a lot of cases, and you have to manage your time in plenty of board games.
Okay.
Hey, that's a pretty good one. So that has helped me in terms of better planning and mapping out my life and mapping out how I go about things.
Wait, are you being serious?
Yeah, I'm great at it.
Okay. So what resource management game that you've played has actually contributed to your ability to manage your time effectively?
Scythe?
So there you are, collating in the office. You're like, man, how do I collate all these things? Oh, I know. It's just like when I'm playing as the Roosevets, and I do this action and then this action. Oh, perfect.
And this is what happens. Hey, and this is what happens when you don't prepare. But you know what happens sometimes when you don't prepare, Sean? You have to think on your feet and act quickly and respond to evolving situations.
There you go.
So, much like Baseball Highlights 2045 first mentioned, when an adverse situation, your opponent has the bases loaded, things aren't looking so good, the ability to respond in a way and try and do your best in a bad situation. So that's one, but also when you lose, and in board games, I mean, I don't ever lose, but sometimes, I can imagine if someone were to lose a board game, that it would be tricky to process that. And it helps you deal with loss better. It helps you deal with losing and being better accepted. Hey, when things don't go your way, bounce back. And so when things don't go your way at work, you don't get that promotion. People don't buy your amazing game. or back it on Kickstarter, you bounce right back. You bounce right back, Sean. Resilience. Board gaming teaches resilience.
Okay.
Is that good? Have I fulfilled my end of this bargain?
You know what you should do? You should play more games you dislike, like Kemet, right? You should play that to really... So it sounds like it's going to be a character-building experience for you, Alex.
I had that character-building experience once, and my character was built up plenty from that experience. I'm good. No Kemet for me. Thank you, and good night.
All right. Well, I'll save you, Alex, by going over to the guild here.
Oh, I had so much more on this list here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off there.
I guess we just ran out of time.
Yeah, apparently. So Weeding Han says, for dice or luck-heavy games, we're trained in risk management, perhaps teamwork and communication in cooperative games. And I'll be honest, I think that in cooperative games, not being an alpha gamer, right, and letting other people contribute to the group is really important. There was actually a time when I was doing this group building activity. This was in college, and there were, 10 of us doing these team building activities, and oh my goodness, I was the worst person. I was just like, okay, everybody, here's what we got to do. We got to do this. Like in every different activity we did, I was just like ordering people around, telling them what to do. Like I'd figured out how to work this, and eventually, like this one friend of mine, she called me out on it. She's like, "Hey, this is team building. This isn't you just ordering us around." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And like it was pretty embarrassing. It's something that hopefully I don't do in board games now, but I think that's definitely the case in any type of team environment, whether it's at work or whatever. I mean, unless you're the actual boss. But other than that, when it's a collaborative process, make sure everyone's ideas are getting thrown into the mix.
Well, and escape rooms are pitched as corporate team building activities, and are, I would think, pretty good for that kind of thing, and certainly more fun than a lot of other team building activities.
Sure.
Yeah. Blaine Miley says, the board game skills that have been transferable to the workplace for me are teaching and team building. Effective ways to teach board games are effective ways to teach other things, and learning from board game teaching has made me strive to make teaching at the workplace more interactive. There's a balance to a successful cooperative board game. Everyone wants to feel like they're contributing, and an alpha quarterback can ruin the experience, and at the end, you want the group to beat the game. A similar approach is applicable to group projects in the workplace. So that second part of that's certainly true. But the teaching part, I think the teaching part could come in handy. There's certainly a pattern to board games that I'm thinking if I would use that to teach other things. Like you start with the end game. All right, so this is how you log into the email. The reason we're doing this, the objective of this, is to answer customer service emails in the most efficient way. All right, now let's go back into the steps of the process. So to set up this game, you log into the email server. I don't know. I guess that could work.
Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of things in various workplaces where it's very, very much a step-driven process. And teaching things in the right order and okay, before you do this, you have to do this, and this thing has some subparts. I think that's definitely the case. And I know when I'm teaching games, I'm trying to make my next teach of the same game better than the last one. I've picked up on, this concept wasn't quite clear or wasn't emphasized enough in this last game that we played of it, so I need to make sure to kind of refocus it. And I think that ability to evaluate your performance is something that can carry over into the workplace, certainly.
Yep.
I do that, when I'm in court, and I'm trying to say the right magic words, right? That's going to convince a judge to do something, and I get better and better at it as I have similar situations. Like, last time I probably should have said it this way or used this word instead of this word, and so it's that constant evaluation and just trying to improve on what you're already doing.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Frank Judnick says, I think board games help with being pragmatic, slow, thoughtful decision-making skills. Granted, sometimes quick decisions are preferred, but I feel certain employers might appreciate well-thought-out plans or answers to problems. If you deal with AP-prone types, then you also learn a great deal of patience. Teaching games helps in jobs with public speaking or instruction training.
I could definitely see that.
Sure.
Kevin Har says, As a teacher, I'm able to incorporate my versions of board games into my classroom fairly often. I played a form of Pandemic with the kids when we covered the Black Plague, and we did a form of Catan when I did early colonization in the Americas. We did a bit of Risk when we covered Napoleon, and a version of 1960, The Making of the American President, when we covered the Electoral College. More than the facts and knowledge, I want the kids to learn about cooperation, communication, and teamwork, as I have through board gaming. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was a teacher years and years ago, we played so many board games. I had a board game club. I had versions of Catan that I kind of made and mass produced I had like 7 different Catan set up. And
did they have Sean-related names?
They did not.
All of your other designs?
It was actually
Seanlers of Catan?
I had a unit in my social studies class called the Middle East and Oil Politics. So it was about scarcity of resources and using Catan to kind of teach that concept. Board games in the classroom, simulations in the classroom are really awesome.
Nice. Well, that'll do it for the discussion topic. Final thoughts on this one? There's a lot of cool stuff that translates over. Right, Sean?
Yes, indeed. So be sure, next time you're applying for a job, to pad your resume with all of these board game-related skills that you've learned, or don't. Because
you know what occurred to me, Sean?
That?
If I do need to make a resume in the future, which hopefully not anytime soon, but you never know, I will literally have board game skills on my resume.
You will have board game marketing skills.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. And it won't be padding, it'll be accurate.
Okay.
By the way, I like the characterization of, you will have board game marketing skills. Someday. Someday you'll get there.
Let's wrap up this episode, Alex. But before we do, we need to give you the rest of the top 6 for episode title suggestions. Let's start with Jimmy Marrow. He says, Heaven and Sail instead of Heaven and Ale. And of course, Sail, what is that? Is that Jump Drive? Oh no, it's Feast for Odin.
Feast for Odin, come on
I guess in Jump Drive, maybe you have like solar sails.
Okay.
But yeah, that's mostly Feast for Odin. So, good job, Jimmy.
Jesse Metcalf with another clever one, at Loggerheads, Logger spelled Lager heads. That's pretty cool. Nice job.
Sivo Rourke, the name father, suggested monkey business. Oh wait, Alex, the show notes are missing an E. Oh wait, no they're not, because it's not actual like monkey, but...
Oh, nice. Yeah, that was solid sound effects.
That's the terrible Gregorian chant. I don't know what that was.
Wait, can I hear that again?
No, you can't.
No?
You can listen to the episode, play that portion back.
Oh, man.
Boy. Monkey business, like monks, from Heaven and Ale and business, because we're talking about resumes. Move along, Alex, move along.
Well, you've heard him sing all the hits, but now Sean Ramirez is going Gregorian. This summer, it's Sean sings the monk hits. All of Sean's Gregorian chants on one 16-track CD. Order now. Anyway, Ryan Rao had the title Tiny Epic Brewing, which was cool. So Tiny referring to Jump Drive, small game. Epic referring to A Feast for Odin, epic-sized game for sure. And I guess epic in scale, epic in the number of worker placement spots. And of course, Brewing, Heaven and Ale.
And then finally, Chris Holmes suggested Light Speed, Heavy Mead, because mead is an important concept in A Feast for Odin. Oh, and also it's a type of a beer.
It's Heaven and Ale. It's tied into everything.
That's fantastic. Good job. Well, thank you very much to the Guild. And if you would like to help participate every other week when we post our Dukes on Deck, be sure to go over to BoardGameGeek.com, Guild number 2008. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the games we're talking about.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
All right, Alex. Well, let's wrap this up. Maybe I'll go get to play some steamrollers. Ooh, and I have some delicious brisket red chili enchiladas waiting for me upstairs. Are you missing the New Mexican food yet?
We have a couple. Oddly enough, we have 2 places in St. Louis that do New Mexican food.
New Mexican food?
New Mexican.
Oh.
There's a place called Southwest Diner, which is specifically New Mexican themed. Yeah. Their sopapillas are a little disappointing. But their chili is legit. Their chili is actually legit stuff.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Little taste of the Duke City.
I got to come back there at some point. I don't know when that's going to be.
Well, you do have family here, so.
I do have family here. And board games. All sorts of stuff back there.
All sorts of stuff. All right. Well, that's going to go ahead and do it then for episode 173, The Alefather. Thanks again to Nick Hayes for naming that episode. So until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on April 12th, 2018. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Taste of Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers. You can check out all of TMG's titles at PlayTMG.com, Arcane Wonders titles at ArcaneWonders.com, and learn more about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!